MAGA Meltdown, the steadfast base of the Republican Party at odds with the Trump administration over the Jeffrey Epstein controversy, plus a Post exclusive. A jailhouse interview sheds some light on alleged Minnesota assassin Vance Boelter. And hit the gym or hit the skids. A UK fitness facility is banning women of a certain age during popular workout times. We will tell you why. Those stories and more today, Monday, July 14th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. Iran and the U.S. are inching back to the nuclear negotiating table. Iran's foreign minister said this weekend that his country is open to restarting talks with the United States after last month's attack on their nuclear facilities. There is one demand, though, a promise from the U.S. that there wouldn't be a repeat performance. Now, there also seems to be a softening in Iran's refusal to cooperate with UN nuclear watchdogs. Shortly after the American bunker buster bombs rained down on Iranian nuclear facilities, Iran had suspended all cooperation. Now, it seems that they would consider allowing the international monitors in on a case-by-case basis. Radioactive ingredients do remain at some of the sites that the U.S. and Israel bombarded back in June. And according to the Iranian official, there is a serious risk of those volatile materials exploding. Now, looking ahead, even if talks resume, the U.S. and Iran finding common ground could prove to be difficult. The foreign minister this weekend reiterated the need for his country to enrich uranium within its own borders, and President Trump has long suggested that is a non-starter. Next to the latest on President Trump's tariffs. I told you last week it is tariff season, and boy, are we in full swing right now. After weeks of relative quiet on that front, the president began rolling out tariff rates for several smaller trading partners. But the administration really amped things up over the weekend with the announcement of 30% taxes on imports from Mexico and the European Union effective August 1st. Now, the main imports from Mexico which could be impacted include vehicles, machinery, electrical equipment, and produce. And the primary imports from the EU include pharmaceuticals and mechanical appliances. Now, these announcements were the latest in a string of letters that were sent to countries who had failed to come to an agreement with the U.S. that had been set within a certain Trump administration timetable. But if we've learned anything since the president began tossing out tariffs like Halloween candy, it's that any rate that gets announced is just a starting point for negotiating. So the real tariff, its effective date, and what it means to you and me at the cash register is really a bit of a moving target. Now to a Post exclusive, a jailhouse interview with alleged political assassin Vance Boelter. Last month, Boelter allegedly murdered Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband and attempted to murder State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. In a series of written messages and two 20-minute video visits with the Post, Boelter said that his motives were not related to President Trump, who he admitted he does support, or related to his pro-life beliefs. Now, Boelter told our reporter, quote, "There is a lot of information that will come out in the future that people will look at and judge for themselves." He added that the info goes back 2 years, but wouldn't really expound on that any further. What he did want to talk about, though, was the yet-to-be-released letter that authorities found in his car addressed to FBI Director Kash Patel. Boelter said, quote, "Certain details of that letter were leaked out that probably painted one kind of picture, but a lot more important details that were in that letter were not leaked out." Now, he told the Post that he actually requested the letter be secured when he was arrested, concerned that someone would destroy it. And now to our big story, the Jeffrey Epstein Conspiracy, or lack of a Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy. It depends on who you ask. FBI Director Kash Patel is doubling down on his agency's assertion that Epstein committed suicide and was not murdered, that there was no secret little black book full of powerful, depraved clients, and that there is simply no conspiracy. Now, Patel took to X over the weekend, posting, quote, "The conspiracy theories just aren't true, never have been." But that's the thing about conspiracy theories, isn't it? The denial sometimes has the opposite of the intended effect, and that is exactly what we are seeing now. Many MAGA faithful remain unconvinced. One of them, Megyn Kelly, who herself posted this weekend calling for the firing of Patel's boss, Attorney General Pam Bondi, writing, quote, "She repeatedly misled on Epstein, then didn't have the courage to explain herself. Suddenly she's camera shy and no cues allowed. Good luck." And she's not the only one who doesn't see eye to eye with Bondi. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino has clashed with her amid the controversy and has even reportedly thought about quitting if she stays in the job. For more on this, I'm joined now by the Post's Deputy Managing Editor, Michael Zenny. Michael, Why has the MAGA base been so set off by the claim that there is nothing to see here? I mean, what do they think they're hiding?
Well, so this goes back very much to the idea that Trump ran on and won on back in 2016, drain the swamp, defeat the deep state, right? So there are some wild theories floating around over what exactly is being hidden, evidence potentially that Epstein was part of a intelligence asset being run either by the CIA or a foreign intelligence agency. Again, that's just a theory by some of these folks. But really, what this is, I think, to a lot of his supporters who are upset about this, is evidence that the deep state is asserting control and that he is sort of not being as transparent as he has promised to be.
Now, Megyn Kelly, in addition to calling for Pam Bondi's job, she had some really uncharacteristically tough talk aimed at President Trump, claiming that he either forgave Pam Bondi for misleading the country or directed her to do it to essentially cover up a scandal that he's involved in. So how much trouble is he really in with his base on this?
Well, I mean, I personally have reviewed many, many thousands of pages of documents on all the lawsuits. This has been really heavily litigated for years. Obviously, the president's associations with Jeffrey Epstein came up in the campaign. They were well known. So, like, is there a smoking gun out there that anyone's going to find that he's covering up? You know, to me, that seems a little bit less likely. However, again, you go back to this idea of draining the swamp. And I think certainly with a certain extremely online portion of his base, including, Elon Musk, this is a really big deal. Now, whether or not that makes sense and matters to his rank and file voters and supporters who put him in on things like immigration and, bringing down inflation, that's another matter.
Now, you mentioned a possible smoking gun, is it out there theory there. And that brings me to another conspiracy that I wanted to ask you about. There was a second kind of conspiracy related promise that President Trump made, and it was to release all the JFK assassination files. We are 6 months into this second term, and so far we don't really have a lot of revelations. Do we know what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, and he's also promised to release the files on RFK, the assassination of Robert Kennedy and also Martin Luther King Jr., right? And thousands and thousands and thousands of files have in fact been released. And the reality is here, and I think this is could be part of what's at play with the Epstein document release as well, is that there really is just not a lot new that's being hidden in these files, right? A lot of the observers who we've interviewed have said, there's so little in these files that the CIA really was not justified in keeping them classified for all these decades, right? There have been a few, sort of uncomfortable things that have been released. I think probably the most significant detail comes down to this connection between a CIA officer and this group that actually confronted Lee Harvey Oswald as he was spreading pro-communist, pro-Castro literature 4 months before the assassination. But that had long been suspected that this guy was connected to that group. And, these files just confirmed it.
One thing I know for sure, as the files do get released, whenever they get released, we will absolutely have them on the New York Post. And I know you'll be digging into them. Michael Zenny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Living in New York is expensive. It does smell like hot trash in the summer, and I have been known to share a subway car with a rat or two, but us New Yorkers, at least we do not have to deal with HOAs. One Arizona man knows what I'm talking about. David Martin says that he's been fined $100 on multiple occasions by his homeowners association for handing out free bottles of cold water to his neighbors. Now, Martin began his goodwill gesture, giving anyone who wanted one a bottle of water as they passed his driveway in Goodyear, Arizona. So yes, Arizona, where it is usually over 100 degrees in the summer. He told a local TV station, quote, "It's for the kids, the delivery drivers, the couple holding hands walking down the street. It's for the little kid who has to walk his dog in the heat." Now, the HOA fined him $50 last year for storing the cooler in plain sight, which is, I guess, a violation of their rules. Well, he refused to pay it and was then fined $100 more for noncompliance, 3 months in a row. So Martin went out and got enough signatures from his neighbors to force a vote to boot 3 members off the HOA board. The vote passed 190 to 20 earlier this month, but the affected board members have now challenged this vote. I love me some small town drama. Heaven forbid any local grade schoolers get lofty ideas about a lemonade stand this summer. They will end up in the clink. And finally today, if you are looking for a reason not to work out, a gym in the UK has you covered with a surefire excuse. You're not allowed. Well, if you're over the age of 24, that is. Yes, you heard that right. This place reportedly put an age restriction on exercise. A British woman says that she recently got a text from her female-only gym letting her know that her 36-year-old biceps were not welcome to pump iron during peak hours because it was being reserved for younger clients. So 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., which is, perfect after work hours, this gym was only for ladies aged 12 to 24. Kind of a random age group there. Now, the gym claimed that they made the switch to, quote, better cater to our younger female members who require a dedicated, comfortable space during peak after school and early evening hours. Considering 12-year-olds can't actually pay for a gym membership, alienating their moms seems kind of like an odd move. I don't know. What do you guys think? You know what I think? I think that the New York Postcast is the perfect thing to listen to on the treadmill, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button today wherever you are listening to this podcast and on YouTube. And of course, check out the New York Post in print or online. Have an excellent Monday, my friends. I will see you here tomorrow.